Got it.
Got it. Okay, man, we are live. So, Buck, I appreciate you making this happen, man.
Of course, it's my pleasure to talk with you today.
So, yeah, I'm finally getting back into these Linchpin member interviews, which we'll get into your story. Got a bunch of stuff I'm curious to hear from your side. If somebody's listening to this in audio format, they may have to go and watch the video because as I look at you, what I see behind you is an amazing selection of barbells. Is there like a dozen barbells on your wall? What's the story there?
There are 15 barbells on my wall specifically. They are all special. They are all different.
Yes.
I like to describe them. It's like a golfer. Now, I'm not a golfer, but I've been told that golfers are allowed to have 14 clubs in their bag.
Okay.
And all those clubs hit a golf ball, correct?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, so I have 15 barbells back there. Then they all lift weights or prepare you to lift weights in various capacities. But I've just when I was starting my garage gym, I it's like the one piece of equipment that kind of breaks you into the rabbit hole. And for mine, it was a Matt Chan bar. And once I
Hmm.
got my hand on that, I was like, I like nice barbells. I've always liked barbell lifting, but when I got my first nice barbell, it was down the rabbit hole from there.
Isn't that funny? You know, I didn't know anything about, I'm not certainly a barbellologist at this point in time in my life either, but I had no idea that different levels of quality of barbell existed because when I was just young, working at a Gold's Gym with all my knucklehead friends or my Joe Weider weight set down in my basement, first of all, the Joe Weider weight set was the diameter of a broom handle, and it was that cheap thing. But then, like at Gold's Gym, I mean, nobody was a Olympic lifting with those barbells. There was no need for them to spin, so they were all, in hindsight, horrible, like horrible
Just lock
barbells,
nut bars. You just take a
horrible. I had no clue. Not only until I started CrossFit and somebody like tried to do a hang power clean, and somebody talked about bar spin, and somebody bought a bar, and I was like, oh wow, like this is fancy. I just had no clue.
well, and being in boxes and all that time and then transitioning home, I also understand why most boxes don't buy expensive barbells. It just doesn't
Mm.
really make sense for them, and they get so much abuse. And
They're gonna take a beating.
yeah, they're going to take a beating. And to be honest, there's no I can feel the material difference between my bars and the bars I used to use, just like again faster barbells at my old gym, but they perform great. It wasn't
Hmm.
like it was hampering me. It's just a fun hobby, just something that makes me smile when I walk in the garage.
Is there one that's your go-to all the time, or do you have like a back squat one versus a something else one?
I do, yes. I have a back squat. I generally use a squat specific bar for back squats. So it's a fully knurled barbell. The entire shaft is knurled.
I've
And it's
actually never seen that. Didn't know that existed.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's 32 millimeters. It's quite thick. And so it's just stuck there. Like it would never slide off your back. It's a pretty aggressive knurl. You get a little bit of a tread pattern on your traps at the end of the day. You wear a shirt
Yeah.
sure when you squat with that. And then for Olympic lifting, I have a Pyros bar that I've had for a few months that I've really started to enjoy. And that's just a great bar. It's got a center. I like to have a center knurl because my front rack is atrocious. So I like a
Me too.
little extra stick there when I can get it. So yeah, I kind of do. I have a barbell for kind of every situation.
And that's Pyrrhus Demus, right?
Yes.
Man, I tell you what, I'm not even like crazy about Olympic lifting. Like I don't go down the rabbit holes, like, and know every Olympic lifter out there. But I've got lost in a couple of his videos of like in him in his heyday. Ever watch him lift and like how an amazing push jerk or squat jerk or whatever you want to call it was like just incredible to watch that dude move weight.
It is for me. I'm not really. I enjoy Olympic lifting. I don't follow the sport really closely. There was a local guy I interviewed for a piece I was writing who was coming up on the USA weightlifting team. He's a local guy, and talk to him about it. And I'll see things pop in my feed every now and again of just crazy lifts, and it's just so impressive. Their mobility and their explosiveness. It's like stupid human tricks. It's like how could somebody do this size, put my 1 rep max deadlift
Yeah.
over their head in one quick motion. It's mind boggling to me. So that's why I find it so interesting.
I don't know if you saw on Rogue's Instagram yesterday or today
I did.
that
When
young
she
woman.
popped her finger back in place. Is that what you're referring
Yes.
to? Yes.
And then did the jerk.
It's it's incredible because if I lose a hand in the front rack, it's not going back. Like
Right.
not because I injured myself, but if I just lose my hand positioning, that lift is gone. I'm just gonna have to drop that bar. So she lethal weapons her hand mid lift, gets her hand back underneath there. It was incredible. It
I
was
tell you
incredible.
what, you've got a daughter. I've got a daughter. Whoever raised that young woman raised a tough young woman. I mean, calm under pressure and just like mission focused on getting the job done. Oh, let me just put my finger back in place here and save the lift while everyone's looking at me. That was crazy.
Well, I thought back to your VNR interview with Matty Rogers a week ago, and they talk about there's just so much time and preparation that goes into like that 15 seconds they're on the platform, and
Right.
like that's all there is for them. So I was like, it's just such a small snippet of time, but it's so important for them. So it was super impressive.
100%. And you said you're down in Texas, right? Lifelong Texan?
I'm a lifelong Texan. I'm the only native Texan in my family. My family is all from Detroit, the Detroit area, and
They were
they.
lucky enough to move to Texas.
I really enjoy Texas, but the heat index is about 107 right now.
That's what I was going to ask. How is it right now?
It is hot, and this is one of our first weeks that's gotten really hot. It's been an overall mild summer by our standards so far. And I'm a tennis coach, teacher and a tennis coach. So I spend a lot of time outside. And so the weather is very important to me,
Hmm.
my quality of life. So it was a really mild winter, been a really mild summer. It may still be a mild summer, but this is pretty standard issue for, late June's getting into the 105, 106 heat index every day.
And do you just deal with it? Is the garage climate controlled? Do you hit early morning, or what's your strategy?
I mostly just deal with it. I have a
Oh,
big Home Depot fan over there that I have turned off right now because it's fine in here at the moment. And I've thought about adding a mini split in here that might be the next addition, but it's one of those things where if I get deep enough into the summer without it, it probably just gets punted to next year.
hmm.
So we'll see how that goes.
Oh man, so you said that you first got involved with working out, lifting some weights back in middle school, right? Weight training started in middle school with you, and then you did football, you threw shot and disc, did some powerlifting in high school. So was all your working out in middle school for football, throwing, and sports like that, or was it just working out with your buddies?
In middle school, it was just because, football conditioning. I don't know if you know this about Texas, but we take middle and high school football absurdly
So
seriously.
that's not a myth.
That is 100% not a myth. It might even be underemphasized
Gotcha.
how important it is culturally around here.
Interesting. Okay. Okay.
And
So
so we would just go into this. It was actually an attic above the gymnasium. We would climb like a ladder that you wouldn't be able to have students climb now and get into this space above the gymnasium, and we would bench press and curl and shoulder press, no squatting up there, just
right.
we do that sort of weight training and do that. And then in high school I did the football stuff, but I also did the global gym stuff, mostly aesthetic based. And just kind of, I feel like, what is the typical 90s men's health, muscle and fitness sort of
Yeah.
experience.
Oh yeah, man.
And then late high school, I got more into performance, Olympic lifting kind of stuff because I was planning to play football in college. So I
Okay.
got more into the performance aspect later in my high school career rather than just the aesthetic.
Gotcha. But you've always been just more just jack and steel, big lifts, power sports, relatively speaking, more on the explosive side, shorter time domain, not really interested in the 10K run.
No, no.
Generally speaking.
I ran before I hit puberty and got bigger. I was a pretty decent junior track sprinter, and I
Okay.
remember one of my
What was your
coaches,
distance?
200 was kind of my specialty.
Okay.
It was just long enough to where I didn't have to be the most explosive, but I was a little bit on the taller side at that time. And so I could get my stride up and I could make up some ground in that last 75 to 100 meters.
That's a nasty distance.
It was good for me. My coach approached me one day and he was like, "We should try the 400." And I was just like, hard pass, like all the way around. There's
No way.
no way that's happening. And I was young. I was probably 9 or 10 years old, and I didn't know physiologically what that distance was yet. I just instinctually knew that that was not something I was wanting or going to do at that time.
Hmm.
And I was very much a whatever you need coach kind of athlete. But when he asked me to do that, I was like, no way I'm running the 400.
It, so how tall are you?
I'm 6'2".
6'2". Okay. I was gonna say I thought you're on the taller side. I'm not blessed with height. I'm just 5'8". I always see you lifting big weight too. You're always posting videos in the private Facebook group, and there's always just, you're back squatting my deadlift or something like that. So you said you completed school and then even through your 20s, you're just embracing just the big three lifts and just continuing just to move some weight around.
Just really inconsistently,
Okay.
life happens. So I got out of school and was pretty directionless. I got into the to the restaurant hotel industry, which has really amazing hours for people who want to be regulated.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
so it
What
was
was your, in
just
what capacity? What did you do in that world?
I was a server for 4 or 5 years. There's a restaurant down in Fort Worth called Joe T. Garcia's. It's a
Okay.
very well-known restaurant. It's been open, gosh, almost not, yeah, like 90 years at this point.
Wow.
And it was just a very it's it's a unique place and people kind of get stuck there. And it was great to me, but it was also, I realized after 5 years there, I needed to get out and get somewhere where there was some sort of trajectory. It's a family-owned restaurant. So if you're
Right.
not family, you've got your place, and
You've got
that's
a ceiling.
it was a great place. And then I got into hotels for a while at the Omni in Fort Worth, and that job really just kind of broke me in terms of being in that industry, and that's what led me to education. I feel like we're similar in a way. Like you avoided the accounting business because your dad was an accountant, and I
Hmm.
avoided education because my parents were both teachers, so
Oh,
that's not
interesting.
something I consider doing.
You must have, I don't know if they're appropriate for this form or whatnot, but you must have both some wonderful stories of interactions with patrons and then some interactions with patrons that just made you lose some faith in humanity with their treatment of the server.
Uh, I would say 95% of my experiences were excellent, but I feel like I'm pretty good at dealing with people one on one. I feel like I get my dad especially was very charming in that regard. My dad never met a stranger
Mm,
ever. And so I feel like it was really easy for me to let those things slide off my back and just meet people where they were and make them happy for what they needed in that moment. But yeah,
gotcha.
Mother's Day brunch. Mother's Day brunch. You say that to a server, and there's a spine tingle. There's goosebumps. And my wife's never really worked in food service, and she'll suggest something like that. I'm like, no way, we're not going to
No
any
way.
restaurants. Mother's Day brunch. We want to go out later. That's great. Mother's Day brunch is a no go. No way.
Oh, that's absolutely hysterical. And through this time, just off and on, sporadic, got the workout bug for a while, it slipped for a while, got it back for a while, it slipped for a while. And then did you find more consistency or normalcy when you left that industry and get into education?
A little bit better because I got into coaching, so we're just around athletic performance all the time. So it was easier to work out. We had weight rooms at our disposal. We didn't have a lot of time, especially I coached football for my first 5 years in education. I've been in 11 years. And the football coaching schedule during the season is anywhere between 85 and 90 hours a week.
Oh, wow.
So it's pretty combined with teaching and coaching and games and practices. It's pretty brutal.
Wow. Yeah.
So it's the kind of thing like in the spring or in the off season when I was coaching another sport, I might find a little bit more consistency, but never more than maybe a day or two a week, if that.
Okay. Okay. And then what I guess, what was the point in your life where it did become more of a habit, a consistent actual habit, a part of your life?
It really was CrossFit, was able to get me in the gym more regularly. I think in high school, I was very motivated. My best friend worked out with me. And so I had a really solid workout partner. We belonged to a 24-hour fitness and we took full advantage. Sometimes we would go at, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, be part of that really scary crowd that's there in the middle of the night, third shift crowd or whatever. So that was really easy to be consistent then in college, off and on with friends and stuff like that. But once I got into real life and having kids, it really was CrossFit. And I mentioned in my email to you that I was doing some journalism on the side, and my editor was like, "Hey, go check out this." I was always interested in that stuff. Go check out this Spartan race they're doing in
Hmm.
Dallas. We'll pay you to go write a story on that and do that. And I went and did it. It was pretty fun, and I got a little bit, got the bug a little bit. So I did the short distance, and then I did a long distance and a medium distance, and I signed up for the ultra, which is their like
How
30.
long is that?
It's 30 miles.
30 miles. Okay, as somebody who's quote unquote not a runner.
Well, it's very segmented. So it's like run a little bit, do an obstacle, run a little bit, do an obstacle.
Okay.
And I was worried about it because I was like, that's a long way for me because I don't love running. And I also don't love burpees. And I
Right.
realized that first race that I couldn't climb a rope. That's just nothing. That's not
Mm.
something I'd ever really learned to do. So I was like, well, there's this CrossFit gym that was a linear mile from my house. I will start working out there, get in generally better shape. And during that time before the race, I'll learn to climb a rope because I'm going to have to do it twice. It'll save me 60 burpees and
Absolutely.
life will be good. And um, that decision to start training with CrossFit kind of, I finished that ultra and I haven't done a race since, not because I don't want to, but it was just like CrossFit kind of took over as the main interest and the main point of consistency from there.
Man, I'd rather do two rope climbs any day of the week than 60 burpees.
Oh, absolutely.
That seems
Absolutely.
like a wildly disproportionate penalty.
Yeah, 30 burpees for any obstacle you fail
Oh,
was
so you could rack up some burpees over the
you
course
really
of,
could, yeah.
yeah, no, no, thank you. So you found yourself a gym, you found yourself a gym that you really enjoyed.
I
You
did.
liked
Yeah,
how they
it
did
was
business.
I'm sorry.
I said you liked how they did business, their approach to things.
Absolutely. It was a husband and wife that owned it, and he was a former teacher. He had gotten out because he is a black belt in Aikido,
Mm,
martial arts, and his wife did judo and was also kind of more versed in Olympic weightlifting. And so
okay.
I thought the way they ran their business was very thoughtful in terms of like the programming. It wasn't very it was very geared towards real life and towards performance in other areas of life, not necessarily like we are all going to make CrossFit regionals and that's the only goal. Like they
That's
were both
awesome.
martial arts practitioners, so it was really just a great way to be conditioned for a lot of things.
And what made you, I mean, I guess why aren't you still there right now?
They closed their CrossFit program.
Ah, gotcha,
So
gotcha.
they're a martial arts gym and a CrossFit gym combined. And COVID was hard for a lot of
Mm,
businesses.
mm-hmm.
And they were able to keep things going, but I don't think the program really ever rebounded after COVID. And they both realized, like, we're doing all this. Martial arts was still keeping the lights on. They both
Gotcha.
were able to start. He started teaching again. She began a teacher. they're taking home an extra however many thousands a year in addition to being able to keep the gym, keep the martial arts
Right.
program. CrossFit schedule was just too much for them to keep going with just general life.
So then, after this first period of nice consistency after so many fits and starts over years, now you're just cast out into the world again, gymless. What began the search for? Was there a search for another gym? Was there an impetus to build out your garage? How did you get to where you are right now?
I had a small setup from the COVID time, and that was a good reinforcement that I could work out via correspondence because they continued to do programming, through COVID,
Okay.
did some Zoom workouts and stuff like that. And by the time gyms were reopening, I had 3 children. Whereas, when I started at CrossFit, I had two. I had my daughter who's a little older, and then we had a newborn. So it was somewhat manageable. And then by the time you get three, I don't have to tell you, things just you're playing zone defense and things get a little bit tougher. And my gym wasn't even very far. It literally took me door to door about 3.5 minutes to get there.
Oh, wow.
The time opened up, like the time it opens up for me to just pop in the garage and get things done, just made a huge difference. Also in my consistency, I noticed a lot of times with my other gym, I would really hit it hard on the weekends. So never
Mm.
miss a Saturday, never miss a Sunday. Try to get in a weekday, maybe two, but not always. So a lot of times I was 3 days a week and just killing myself on the weekends. We always did a hero wad on Sundays, and
Okay.
it was like a tacit agreement between my owner and the stupid crew of us who would do it. He was like, I don't really want y'all doing this in terms of how it fits in with my programming,
Right.
but
I
y'all
mean,
want it
doesn't.
so much, like it's there if you want to do it, you morons. Like it was that
Yep.
sort of thing. And then we all beat ourselves up on Sundays, and then you're cooked for a day or two or whatever.
I always tell people it's a great big world out there, right? I mean, there's however many billions of people in the world, whatever, 300 and something million people in the United States. Like everybody's a bit different. Like there's a fitness niche and group and community and experience. There's some people who if you pull them out of a group setting, they never work out again in their life. They just don't have it. They don't have that discipline, motivation, whatever it is. There's some people who have no interest. The flexibility of working at home is ideal for them. Conversely, they wouldn't work out if they had to always be at the 5 p.m. class or some rigid schedule. It just wouldn't work. Like there's something for everybody out there, but did you have any, I guess you said you had a taste of being able to work out remotely and knew that would serve you well. As time has gone on, how has working out, in your garage treated you? Do you find it difficult or is it now just a part of your life and you flip a switch and you walk out there and work out and it's all good?
It was difficult at first.
Mm.
So my wife and I are very different people. My wife has always worked out at home, like the entire time I've known her. We've been together almost 11 years, and I can count on one hand the days she has not exercised between the hours of 6 and 8 a.m.
Dedicated human being.
Most of those days she was in the hospital giving birth to a human.
Right,
So
right,
those
right.
that's like
Good,
three of
good
those
reason.
that's 3 of those days right there. So it's one of those things, and I am the opposite. I really thrived in that class environment, being with my buddies and having that external competition motivation. And so the moving home was a little bit tenuous for me at first. I had some periods. I actually went through a trial of Linchpin and let that lapse and kind of went out on my way for a while and then came back.
Oh,
Uh,
fascinating.
yeah. So it was just one of those things where I had to ramp up to it. And now it is an easy 4 days a week for me. Sometimes it's five.
Out of curiosity, um, what made you come back?
Well, I've always followed you from VNR, and I've always enjoyed yours and Adrian's take on programming and the place of fitness in general.
Hmm.
But I think I did what a lot of people do is I just, kind of got out there and saw what was out there. I
Absolutely.
did some trials of some other well-known programs,
Yep.
and it didn't take me very long to figure out like this isn't really for me in terms of the volume, expectation,
Sure.
frequency of movements, and that's something I think Maddie Rogers said in your interview too. Like people have to screw up on their own. Um, I I've been a a powerlifting coach. I've been around athletics a long time, and I've been around athletics long enough to know that I cannot program for myself. I can't do it. It's not something I should do. I'm ill-advised to do it. When I was home from when the gyms were closed, I think I did a death by with 315-pound deadlifts.
Ooh, how did that
It
go
went really well. Let
72
me tell you,
hours later?
it went really well. If you asked my chiropractor how well it went for his billable hours, I had
Out
oh,
of curiosity, we're not saying anyone should do this, but do you remember your score?
no, no, I blocked it. I could probably go back in BTWD
Okay.
and find it, but it was results were poor. Results
Okay.
were poor all around. The lingering results were poor. I had I had a spondylolisthesis,
What is
which is
that?
basically it's a separating of the vertebrae at the very lowest parts of your vertebrae, like
Okay.
basically shifting forward. You think of it like a house foundation, shift
Okay.
forward. That was what was happening in my lower back.
Mm.
I was in a lot of pain, and I think I shrugged that off or just tried to do mobility for several months before I got into a chiropractor my very first time going. And he was like, he was like, you're close to needing surgery, but kind of not there yet, where we fuse it.
Interesting. Okay.
He was
Oh,
like,
so it did get fused.
no, I didn't.
Didn't. Okay.
He was like, you're on the cusp, man. You need to not pick up a weight off the floor like a barbell for at least 4 months. And you need to come and see me at least once a week for those 4 months.
Okay.
And I did.
And
And
and it
I did a
improved.
lot of gymnastics during that time.
Okay. And it improved for you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So out of curiosity, I don't want to put words or thoughts in your mouth, but if I was to think about, what I've learned about you, and then you're making this transition over to Linchpin, or you explored it, you kicked the tires some other places, you came back. I would think somebody with your background, as much as you love to squat and dead heavy, that it would be very appealing or potentially intoxicating to find somebody that's every day is going to be a heavy lift plus something, but yet you chose us, which we very adamantly don't do that. We've got, I would say that we lift heavy. I think it's fair to say most weeks we lift heavy twice a week. You're going to find one classic heavy day, 5 by 5, 7 by 1, whatever it has to be. And then there'll be a disguised heavy day at a high heart rate. So out of 5 days of training, I bet two of those are, one classic and one heavy. But that's 40%, right? 2 out of 5. That's not 5 out of 5. Did what made you choose that, or am I wrong? And the lifting wasn't that much of a driving force to you. And then did you have some nerves of, "Oh, I'm going to follow this for a while, but I'm probably going to get weaker." What was your action? And I don't know what your experience was. So I'm just curious to hear you talk on that general topic.
It's, I mean, it's wizard pepper, right? That's what we say in the private Facebook group. It's, yeah, it's easy to say. I think it's one of those things. It's easy to say less is more, but we're hardwired to think more is more. And when I go to a buffet, more is more.
Amen.
Enough is not as good as a feast. More is.
Amen.
That's why the word is feast and not just, just
Right.
satiate. But I wasn't overly nervous about it because I think my fitness goals in many ways have changed. I'm
Mm,
I don't need to be the very strongest person because you talked about it recently. If your back squat is the 90th percentile, but your 5K is the 25th percentile, well, there's a and
sure.
that's me. Like I'm more, I need more. I don't want to call it fitness, but I need more conditioning than I do.
Scales weren't in balance.
Right. And I guess the surprise was that even though I'm not necessarily following a classic linear progression program that's geared at weeks and every week you're going to do the same thing and you're going to add 2% or whatever,
Hmm.
I am getting stronger. So,
Which is, again, I think that's, we see it every day in the speech, the
oh yeah.
Linchpin squads feature, the private Facebook group, but I think people on the outside probably think this is just like a large lie that I've told everybody to say. That like you actually don't have to lift heavy every day to get to lift heavy. And quite frankly, I think it's probably counterproductive. There's that strength coach that wrote Starting Strength, Mark Rippetoe.
Oh yeah, he's he's not that far from me. He's about 2 hours west of me in Wichita Falls.
Yeah, and had a relationship back in the day with CrossFit, and I don't think he certainly does right now. But as a matter of fact, I think he's not a fan in general of the methodology. And fair. I don't know. He's not a CrossFitter, so I don't know how much he actually knows, or not all CrossFit's created equal, quite frankly. But I will say one of the things that I do agree with him about, and I'm paraphrasing and I might butcher it a bit, but he kind of said like, you don't get strong when you lift heavy weight. You get strong after you lift heavy weight when you allow your body to rest. Well, it's like, well, if you're lifting every day, when's that rest? It's never there, And so I think so many people benefit from especially if you are lifting 4 or 5 or 6 times a week, like, hey, we're going to back that off. We're going to make the sessions that you do really intentional. You're going to pour your heart and soul into them. And then we're going to actually let that adaptation take in your
Mhm.
body so that when you come back, like the gains have happened, And I think that is something easy to say if somebody's hearing us or listening to this, like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But still, to make the leap, but you actually made the leap, which is, really cool, and I think it's admirable because, like you said, I think it's easy to say, it's easy to nod along, and it's tough to put your money where your mouth is and commit to the process. And you actually did. So that's cool. Did you lose anything off the top of your squat and your dead? Or is it roughly where it used to be pre that, or is it gone up a
It's
bit, or is it hit and miss?
it's tough to say. I really have to compartmentalize my expectations in a lot of ways because I have these distinctive periods in my life.
Mm.
17-year-old power lifter me looks at these
Right.
numbers and is sad faced.
Right.
You also, those numbers are hit in squat suits and with
Oh, sure,
knee wraps
sure.
and in competitions and with a
Right.
17-year-old body made out of adamantium. And then
Right.
I have sort of different expectations for that. um Almost 40-year-old me doesn't necessarily like. I didn't do the 7x2 deadlift day last week.
Mm.
I did 7x8 bench press because
Good for you.
I'm just very judicious on how much and when I deadlift because I know that is a lift where I will I will want to really get heavy, but
Hmm.
I don't know how much it really benefits me to be heavy in the deadlift.
Right.
So, I used to be, 20 touch and go, 225 deadlifts. Oh, I'm done already. And now it's
Right.
like, I'm probably going to break these into fives, maybe four sets of, maybe five
Right.
sets of four. Cause
Yep.
I don't want my form degrading at all
I
because
hear you 100%.
I've been down that road. I like to joke that for me, and everybody's different. 35 was when my factory warranty ran out.
Hmm.
When that factory warranty runs out, you be a little nicer to that vehicle because it's not gonna you're gonna have to pay out of pocket to fix it. So,
Yes. And
yeah,
that's a really powerful thing for you to realize, for me to realize, whatever phase or age or whatever that happens for somebody, like that's coming for all of us.
sure.
And you think if you're listening to this and you don't think it's coming for you, that you're special and different, I don't want to burst your bubble, but you're not. It's coming for you. And there's no one right or wrong way to do it, right? It depends upon what works for you. So maybe, with your history of what you've done to your back or, or whatever it is, like that you're like, for me, the deadlift is not my friend often post a certain load, so I'm going to avoid that. Totally cool, right? I mean, I'm I'm at the place now. I'm 48, I'll be 49 here in a couple months. And like I do the 7x1 deadlift day or 7x2, I think it was the other day. Um, like my 7x1s these days look different than they did 12 years ago. Like my 7x1 12 years ago was like a, you know, risking potential blackout, eyeballs
No, nose
bulging out of my
nosebleed.
head, like, legs shaking, like the lift might take 11 seconds to get to the top. Um, and everything was fine. Lucky, maybe I'm lucky enough to never have done anything, but like now these days in my 7x1 is what feels really darn heavy, but appropriate.
Yep.
And that's different than a 1 rep max. Like every one of those sevens in my mind, I used to think that one of those sevens, one of those singles, had to touch a 1 rep max or had to be a
Sure.
new 1 rep max or touch an old 1 rep max. And now I walk in, I'm like, I'm going to lift something heavy today that feels like what's an appropriate heavy single that's not stupid or negligent for how I feel today. And whatever's on the bar is whatever's on the bar. And that is maybe a tough mindset shift for a lot of people, but I think it's a really healthy and positive one if you want to be doing this stuff for decades. And I do the same thing like when I sprint. I still do 10x100 meter repeats, when those come up, but they're not a maximal 100-meter dash because I know what would happen to my hamstring. There, whatever pace, as my brain is connected to my body, as I'm warming up and getting through it, they're like, okay, this is faster than I've run in any workout recently. This is faster than whatever, but this is not maximal. And great. I go home and I train another day. And that's a great mindset shift, to be honest with you. So I'm happy that you're there with some of your lifts.
Yeah, it's the linchpin IQ. It's your fault. It's well, and I think it's in many ways it's what y'all preach, but we're not. I want to say we're not competition focused because there is competition. I'm going to stream snipe Dan and see what he lifted, and Justin and Chris and those guys, and I'm gonna ooh and ah at Ben's times on things, and those guys and Tanner could get out. They could get out and compete if they wanted to, for sure, and do
Sure,
really
sure.
well. But not everything is. You're not programming things just because, well, this is what you're going to see at a semifinal or a quarterfinal or whatever,
Oh,
and
right.
that's what I need. I've done some competitions and things like that. It was fun. It was good stuff, but I don't have any delusions of making any money with CrossFit other than maybe writing some sports articles about it. So that's
Yeah.
that's about
And
all there is for me.
you quite frankly couldn't care less what's going on at those competitions. Often they're a distraction. I mean, to be
Sure.
quite honest with you, as to what the human body actually needs to advance. So some of those people that you mentioned there in the Facebook group, one of the things you said before this interview, and we were going back and forth via emails, you said one of the most surprising parts of Linchpin was the Facebook group. And what did you mean by that?
Well, it's my in-person gym. We had a great community. I have a lot of really close friends that I still like. Even this week, I'm dropping into a gym a few times because it's like their bring a friend week, and I can get down there and work out in person with them because we're all busy. We're all busy adults. You don't see your friends as much as you'd like.
Hmm.
So uh, it was really hard to think that an online community, because I have tried other online programs,
Mm.
just kind of, I'm not saying you feel adrift necessarily, but we do have something different. And I didn't think that seeing people's posts in the private Facebook group would be all that motivating, but it really is. Like
Yeah.
I'm on Facebook too much, admittedly, mostly because I'm shopping for equipment on Facebook Marketplace.
Right.
It's like the dirty side of my mind. But I see people's posts every day, and even if I feel demotivated that day, damn it, those posts just like they get you. It's like, well, Sarah's working out and Melanie's working out and Tanner's working out and Chris is working
Hmm.
out and Steve's working out. Like, oh, they all got it in today. I guess I need to get it in today.
Doing
And so
all
it
kinds of
really
different
is.
scales or all kinds of different modifications or all kinds of different whatever, and just making it happen.
And it's you've mentioned it before too, and it gets mentioned, but it's worth mentioning again that there's no place online that's as positive It's
Dude,
just everyone's just positive to each other, which is, I
we
think
lucked out.
in person that's an easy thing to do because people are generally the worst, not everyone, but a lot of people are the worst versions of themselves online. But everyone is just so positive. It's so,
It
that's
makes my job really easy with regards to, I don't have to do any managing or babysitting of that group. It's actually like incredible.
yeah,
Especially given the size of the group, like you would think
sure.
percentage wise, even if a small percentage were obnoxious, a small percentage of a large number can cause, but there's nothing. This became highlighted over the weekend. The community that I live in, there's a private Facebook group for like our neighborhood. And there was won't get into it here, but all I'll say is I've never posted in that Facebook group ever. I just see it because I'm part of the neighborhood. And there was a post that was made over the weekend, which was so wildly inappropriate and like overstepping boundaries of some person getting into another person's business, which they had no right on this planet to even do, but yet they blasted it to the internet. And like, I was like, what is happening? I couldn't even imagine, like, this is unthinkable. And like the back and forth and the bickering that happened, it's like, we're so fortunate and blessed. Like, I don't know how we lucked out, but we don't have to deal with any of that stuff. It would be a nightmare.
I am actually, I'm a moderator of our private Facebook group for our neighborhood. And it's a
Okay.
very small neighborhood. Like I think there's only 245 members. And
Okay.
every 2 or 3 months, yes, there's a post that goes off the rails. And I'm just like, come on, guys,
Come
really?
on.
Like, do we have to do this? And
Come
you're right.
on. And
It's
not
such a
to
small
and not
group
to
comparatively.
not to like belabor this. We could have a different conversation if we were face to face. I'd fill you in on all the details, but I was just like also like where like I don't know if I was just born in a different generation, but I was also like, if you had this issue, like, and going back to the neighborhood, why didn't you have a face-to-face conversation with this person? Why didn't you there stop in their driveway, say hello? Like you blasted it on Facebook. Like, what are you, 11 years old? Like, what's happening here? Like, this is this, I mean, good grief. But anyway, you've got four children,
I do, yeah.
all the way down to 2 years old.
Yes, he's just recently too. And
Oh
really
my,
coming into his tunis. He loves his
oh
tune.
my goodness. And so when do you sneak into the gym or is it different every day?
Oh, it's pretty different all the time. It's just I am really not I get up with the kids. My oldest son, my 6-year-old, he's wired different. He just gets up early, always has, probably always will. He's generally a 5 a.m. waker.
Oh boy, okay. All
Um,
right.
we funny story about time zones. My sister lives in Sacramento and she visits often. But we went out to visit her one time when he was probably 1.5. And did you know a 1.5-year-old doesn't give a crap about our time zones?
Sure, right.
So he would wake up right bright and early at 3 a.m. every
Oh,
single day of that week-long trip. And my sister, God love her, they have a daughter who's my daughter's age. She's about 13, and she was probably 8 or 9 at the time. And they would get up at 10 a.m. their time. So we already been up for like 7 hours, and they'd be like, "Hey, what
oh,
are you gonna do today?" I'm like, "Well, we need a
we've done
nap.
a lot already.
We've had a whole day already."
Oh
So,
man.
so I get up with my two older sons. My youngest son is the only one with his own room, so he sleeps later in the morning because he's allowed because he's able to. I get
Right.
up with the little ones, tend to their needs. My wife generally gets up and works out. My ideal time to work out is usually 9 or 10 a.m.
Okay.
And sometimes my workflow is that I get to come home between two campuses. So during the school year, generally that's when I try to sneak workouts in for the weekday. And then on the weekend, 9:30 a.m. or so. But it is truly sometimes I'm working out at night. It's a get it in where you fit it in sort of
Yeah,
situation.
especially with that many kids. We've only got three. My daughter, yesterday, I picked her up from daycare, I was driving her home, and she confirmed, no need for paternity test. She confirmed that she's my daughter on the way home because I have a sweet tooth. Nutrition's the toughest thing for me.
Sure.
And I was talking to her, I gave her a little snack in the car. She had a little, processed food, crappy snack, and then she wanted more. And I was like, well, why don't we wait till you get home? We'll get you something there. She's like, why? I said, well, we get home, I can get you some real food. You need some real food. She's like, why? And I said, well, you need real food so that you can be strong. And this is her quote. She goes, I don't want to be strong. I just want to eat Cheez-Its. It's like, you are my daughter.
Fantastic.
Yep, I feel you, but we're still gonna do it.
I have really felt for you on your journey with your daughter, because I feel like that is my oldest son. He was just a tough. There was not a lot of sleep in that first year, and for us, we were really blessed in that, like, we have two younger sons than him, and they both seemed so easy.
Mm,
We had him first, so our expectations were
tricked you.
extremely difficult. And then when they were just pretty good sleepers, it was like, wow, this is fantastic.
That's
And
awesome.
the opposite would have been really hard. If we'd had really easy ones first and then he came along, that would have been really, really hard. Because so it's and he's dialed in. It's gonna serve them so well, is what I tell myself.
Yes,
It
agreed.
really
Yeah.
is.
She often chooses violence when she's given an option between
Sure.
peaceful or,
Yeah.
like I said, I'm gonna put your shoes on so I can buy you ice cream. She's like, try it, try to put my shoes on. I'm like, but I'm gonna get you ice cream. She's like, I don't care, try it. And I was like, what is happening here? But yeah, one day down the road, she's not gonna be a pushover, and
No.
that will serve her well. I guess in wrapping up, if there anything you just like the parting thoughts to share with folks out there, maybe they're in a busy time in life, or maybe they're in that roller coaster of fitness now, then no fitness now that you've been in before. Any words of wisdom looking back?
Ooh. Just try to be flexible. There's there's I feel like that's the only parenting advice that applies. You're a parent, you got a million pieces of advice. Every parent does, and almost none of it applies to your kid.
Right. Right.
Even though all kids are the same, I teach kids, I've got kids. Every kid is the same and every kid is completely different. They're both true and they coexist at the same time. So just be flexible. Just, that's all there is, because every situation is going to be different and need to be handled differently. And all the advice will go out the window. And sometimes you got to get in the gym at 9:30 at night and grab a couple dumbbells, or, sometimes you're in a hotel room on a work trip and you bang out
Mm,
two air squats or whatever. And sometimes the stars align on a Saturday and you got 2 hours to do a heavy day with mobility and cool down, and you're going to have all of them. And
yeah.
that's about it. And they'll get more independent, but it'll be even scarier,
Right.
but you'll have more time on your hands.
Right. Whatever phase you're in is the difficult phase.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man, Buck, I appreciate it, brother.
Of course. It's great
Thanks for
to
being,
talk to you.
yeah, thanks for being a part of Linchpin, and I'll see you online.
Absolutely.